one of the things that was great about doing the series was I was able to sort of choose people that I wanted to have on for warm-ups, the acts that go on when there's breakdowns in transmission or try and get the audience going. And I was able to use one of my favourite acts, which is Stephen Carlin. He's a Scottish guy. I toured with him for about 4 months in 2005. I think he's really brilliant. He has the kind of dry, sophisticated, elegant and beautifully written material that has no place on television. So it's going to be a real treat for you to see something this good, I think. Ladies and gentlemen, some highlights from the warm-up offcuts of Stephen Carlin.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. It's lovely to be in this. This is a beautiful room, as Stewart said. It is a big improvement on my first ever gig, I've got to say. My first performance, I don't know if you know, it's probably, I haven't heard, but it was 5 years old actually, my first gig as such. It was a school nativity play, and I played the part of Joseph in my school nativity. Joseph Stalin. So, unfortunately, I was a bit of a method actor in those days. That's right, so one or two of my classmates did die. Needlessly. But anyway, let's not dwell on the crimes of Joseph Stalin this evening. Probably the deaths of 20 million people, not an appropriate start for Stewart Lee's comedy vehicle. You know, keep it nice and light and upbeat. So thought just instead I'd just kick off by starting to talk about hurricanes in America. Because probably like me, you have been looking forward to the new hurricane season in America. Not specifically for the destruction that will be unleashed. I think primarily just to see which names the Americans are going to give their hurricanes this year. Because see what you like about the Americans, they do love to name hurricanes. And I think, you know, things like Hurricane Hannah, Hurricane Ike, I think fair play to them. That's good customer service, nice personal touch, because we don't bother naming weather systems in Britain at all, do we? Not in Britain, we tend to say things like, oh, yeah, you remember those high winds? That time. But I think the worst thing about American culture must surely be America's over-reliance on superheroes instead of more conventional emergency services. I've known this for quite a few years, actually, because you might recall the Buncefield fuel depot fire. A few years ago, the fuel depot in Hemel Hempstead went on fire. It was the largest fire in post-Second World War Europe. Explosion could be heard in France. What do we do in Britain? We got the fire brigade to put that out using foam. Yeah, very good. Now, very similar situation occurred, you might recall, in the documentary Superman 3. When an oil refinery caught fire, and what did the Americans do? What was their approach? Well, they thought somehow it would be a good idea, firstly, to get Superman to fly to a lake, then to get him to freeze that lake with his breath by blowing on it, then to pick up his one sheet of ice, right, with no regard to any of the wildlife living in that lake whatsoever, to pick up the ice, fly to the refinery with it, drop it on the fire. Now, I must have been only about 7 years old, I reckon, when I seen that movie. And even I knew at that age that you don't put water on an oil fire. Wait, what was the correct approach? What should Superman correctly have done? Well, Superman should have got himself a giant tea towel the size of an oil refinery. So I reckon something in the dimensions of about 3 miles by 3 miles ought to do the trick. Dip that in the lake, lift it out, wring it so it's damp, but not dripping wet. So follow the guidelines. Then to carefully place that over the oil refinery, thus smothering the flames. But I suppose the concept of a giant tea towel was just ruled out by the producers as being too ridiculous, too far-fetched, and too unbelievable, even for a Superman film. So I think that's the moment when Superman and I parted company, to be honest with you. I don't like Superman anymore. Don't like the man, because I'll tell you why. He's reactive, he's not proactive. Superman wouldn't do very well in today's business world, let me tell you. He's been flounder at his 6-month appraisal, gets slapped down. Because his whole approach is, you wait until something goes drastically wrong, and people's lives are in threat, and then he thinks that would be a good point to spring into action, to do something about it. Not at all interested in that whole key preventative side of the emergency business. I mean, basically my ideal Superman film would be a film in which there was no one in danger, in which there was no one in peril, in which there were no rescues, just 2.5 hours of Superman touring like a succession of factories and then handing out health and safety advice. my favourite drink of choice is whiskey. I like Scotch whiskey, national drink. I like the way it makes you feel a bit dizzy after a few. You start banging into bits of furniture. Yeah, I like the way that it makes you a bit indiscreet. You start making one or two inappropriate remarks. I like the way that at 3 a.m, you can be standing at a bar with a complete stranger discussing how tomorrow you will set up a company together. And let me tell you, I used to be a Marks and Spencer's skeptic, okay? I didn't used to believe in Marks and Spencer's as a shop. I didn't think it offered anything for me, but I found out recently that Marks and Spencer's sell whiskey in cans. That's right, Marks and Spencer's, for all places, sell whiskey in metal cans. Basically, it's like a Red Bull can with whiskey in it and then mixed with ginger ale. Ideal for that busy alcoholic on the move. Or if you like drinking whiskey but feel that drinking out a glass just has too much inherent dignity.